if you're part of a couple in life, unless you're careful enough to get run over by the same freight train, one of you is going to outlive the other one. And it may not be the Parkinson person who dies first. So you really have to say, how would I be solo? How would my spouse be solo? What can we do now to make sure the ducks are in place? And if you're over 70, I don't know how to say this gracefully, but your warranty is up. You may begin to have parts failure at any time. And so you have to think ahead to what you would do if preparing for the worst does not make it happen. So that power of attorney, a will that's actually been updated since 1951, those things, advanced directives for health care. Recently went through this with my son, and he said, I'm not going to let anybody else make decisions for me. And I said, well, that's fine if you're conscious. That works real good when you're awake. But people hate to make those preparations. They dread, that it means something. Well, it doesn't make it happen. I want to talk a little bit about finding a support group that is a good match. How to build a team, a support team. This is not a Parkinson group, not a San Diego group, although being in Little Italy last night, no, never mind. Have you ever thought about appointing a board of directors for your life? I've done a lot of work with small, and actually with NPF now, not so small nonprofit. And you wouldn't think of running a business or an organization without a board. My board I put together for myself, they're poorly paid but really sweet, is a neurologist I used to work for because I really trust his judgment. His wife is thoughtful enough to be an attorney. I don't know how they hooked up. But anyway, they're both on my board. I have a relative, I consider my husband part of my board of directors. We just don't let him have the swing vote very often. I would, that sounds sort of silly, or too formal or too stilted. But if you think, if I were in a mess, who could I go to and really count on their advice and be willing to share enough for their advice to be meaningful? And it may not be a family member. It may be a trusted friend or somebody at your church. I would advocate that you need 4 good people or 2 great people and a lapdog. Now, if you don't doubt that a dog can be worth 2 people in your life in terms of loyalty and reinforcement and support, you obviously just never had a dog, and I can't really help you there. But I've certainly had a dog in my family that was worth 2 of my family members, so I can tell you. What is your mission? I developed this as part of a workshop many years ago where my mission, I decided, was to identify and support excellence in the Parkinson community. I didn't care if it was, thank you. That has worked well. It has worked well whether I'm working with APDA or NPF or Michael J. Fox to see if we could smuggle him into the Unity Walk. It has worked well for me to help decide which research I ought to sort of drop a note about with an organization that sounded really good to me when I was out roaming around the country. Might not qualify for NIH funding, but maybe somebody should look into that. It has worked well for me when I am busy and I have to decide whether I'm going to volunteer to do something in the Parkinson community or to do something the MS Society has asked me. Well, there's nothing wrong with the MS Society, but it helps you know when to say yes, and all of us can't say yes all the time, so we say no sometimes, and having a mission lets you know that. What I'm learning, though, is mission eventually, as we get older, turns into legacy. We begin to ask, I'll tell you when it happens, it's exactly 2 years after you begin to read the obituaries as a habit every morning. If you're not there, get back to me. Because I said that would never happen to me, but I'm almost there. I do it so I won't miss patients, that might have died. So, but people do it for a variety of reasons. But developing a legacy is when you start to say, now, not what memories do I want to have and make for myself. I used to base a lot of memories on travels, for instance, because I love traveling. My husband says he appreciates my work as a speaker, but it really just supports my travel habit. But then I'm getting old enough now, I'm almost 60, to begin to say, what do I want my granddaughters to remember about me? What is important that I'd like, when I write my obituary, and I guess I won't be doing that, but I did it one time as part of a psychology workshop, that really makes you think. If you want it to be said, she is well known for her blah, 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 and you're already 60 and you haven't started working on it, you better get busy or nobody will know when you go at 90 that you were well known for that. So a legacy is important. When I asked my oldest granddaughter what she would remember about me if something were to happen to me, I was so moved. The first thing Paige said is, well, I would remember that you always told us the truth. And even when something awful was happening and everybody else was hedging or whatever, you would tell us the truth. And I was feeling pretty good about that. And she said, and the other thing is that you always let me taste your drinks. So, you know, you realize at some point you still got some work to do, and hopefully I've got some time left to do that. I'm going to wind up here by talking about caregiver health just a bit. A lot of you don't neglect your health for the same reasons you neglect the dentist and the mammograms, but it is just hard to work everything in. A lot of people are subclinically dehydrated. They just don't drink enough water during the day. That's not just true for Parkinson patients. It's true for anybody over about the age of 60 to 65 years of age. Are you taking your aspirin a day? All of you, do you know if you take a baby aspirin at night, you've got a great chance of preventing stroke or heart attack? If you can't afford it, let me know. I've got some pocket change up here on the table. I'll host buying aspirin for everybody in the room if we need to. It's such a simple thing, but we get so wrapped up in our prescriptions and our have-tos and the 4 times a day, that just something really affordable and minor like that, we're not doing it. Are you taking your calcium and vitamin D supplements? Are you taking your prescription medicines that are the have-tos, or do you forget a lot of doses? That's another thing I've learned going into people's houses that I never knew in the office, because people will lie to you in the office, and so there are a lot of overlooked doses. Now, that's not as scary as the people who take a dose of a prescription medicine and then can't remember if they did or not, so they take